Hi everyone, welcome to this presentation. Today we're going to look at the passive voice. So the passive voice is good when we talk about processes. So processes like making things, making food, making objects. In this case we're going to look at making tea. Okay, first let's look at what is the passive voice and when do we use it. So normally the performer of an action, the subject or the agent, comes first and is made the subject. This is the active voice. Millions of people watch the World Cup final. The passive voice, we use it when we focus attention on the person or thing affected by the action. So in this case, the World Cup final. We'd say the World Cup final is watched by millions of people. So we swap them around. So we have, for the passive voice of the verb to be, the past participle, then by the agent. The apple is eaten by the boy. Bananas are exported by Colombia. We don't always have to include the by an agent or person, especially when we're describing processes. Like the potatoes are peeled, cut, and then boiled in water. So when we talk about processes, we often use the passive voice. Process, what is it? It's how something is made, an object, or a recipe for food, or maybe a natural process like the water cycle or photosynthesis. So it's when there's various steps, step 1, step 2, stage 3, stage 4, etc. So let's look at a process. Let's look at the different stages. Let's look at how to make a cup of tea. Of course, tea in England is like the national drink, like coffee in Colombia. But there's a very long process and a long journey from a tea plantation, where it is grown, to a hot cup of tea. Let's look at that journey. So stage 1, on the plantation. So tea is grown on plantation like this. It's grown on plantations. Passive voice is grown. Past participle of to grow. So the countries where most tea is cultivated, passive voice, are China, India and Kenya. So not in the UK. There's no tea grown. No tea is grown, is cultivated in the UK. Okay. Stage 2, harvesting. So tea is harvested by farmers. The tea is plucked or picked by hand, not by a machine. And a tea farmer can harvest at least 20 kilograms of tea leaves every day. Here you can see some women harvesting tea. Stage 3, the tea after it is harvested, the tea is weighed. Next, the tea is partially dried. Then the tea leaves are rolled by a machine. And then the tea leaves, after the tea leaves are rolled, they are broken. Stage 5 is the fermentation stage. What happens here? Well, tea leaves are placed in a controlled environment with a humid atmosphere. The leaves oxidize. This process is called fermentation. After the fermentation stage, the tea is dried. The leaves are dried again by machine. Stage 7. The dried tea leaves are sorted and graded according to their shape, their size, and their quality. The tea leaves are packaged and labelled, so they are put into packages and they are labelled. Stage 9. The tea is exported and distributed. The tea is sent all over the world to many different countries. And stage 10. The tea is sold at supermarkets. The tea is sold in many varieties. You can see all these different varieties of tea. The tea is bought by customers and taken home. So the final stage is making the cup of tea. So you are going to do an exercise to fill in the spaces, the gaps, with the passive voice. I've done the first one to help you, and now you need to complete it. So you see here, first the water to boil is boiled. So you can fill in all the gaps in the passive voice. Remember, is the verb to be, is or are, plus past participle. Okay, so you have 7 minutes. You can pause the video. 7 minutes to do the activity, and then we'll look at the answers. Okay, you can pause the video now. Okay, let's look at the solution. So we had the first one. First, the water is boiled. While the water is boiling, a tea bag is placed inside a teapot. When the water boils, the water is poured into the teapot. The water is left to brew in the teapot for 4 to 5 minutes. The tea is poured into a mug. Milk or sugar are added and the tea is stirred. The tea is served with a biscuit. Enjoy your cup of hot tea. There you go. So I hope you learned something about tea and about the passive voice for describing processes. Remember, it's very simple. It's just the verb to be and the past participle. Okay, thanks for listening, everyone. Bye bye.